Hello and welcome back to the Stacey West podcast for episode number 378, I believe. I very much hope that I just checked that correctly, but I believe I did. I am your host today, Charlie, and a little bit unusually, well, I say unusually, it was actually very, very good for those that listened. I'm sure you will very much agree, but on Tuesday, you had 3 people on the podcast with Gaz hosting and 2 pundits. I'm only joined by 1 pundit tonight, but it doesn't mean that he's any less special than he was on Tuesday night. Mr. Chris Lamming, Mr. Statsman, how are you doing, sir?
Hello, have you got the theme tune for me again? Please say no. No, it's fine. Please don't do it. No, I was joking. I'm good.
You can't ask for it.
No, I didn't want it. I was expecting you to play it over me like Gaz did. But no, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Just quickly on Tuesday, it was a real pleasure to have Emily on. And for those people that have messaged saying that she was good, thank you. We thought so too. It's really very good. We thought so too. But you never know, do you? When you do these things. But for those of you that have made a point of kind of commenting and messaging and saying that how much of a welcome addition she was, just thanks for that. It really does. It really means a lot. And it meant a lot to her as well, because she was don't know why, a bit nervous about coming on. Had no reason to be, did she? But it was lovely. It was lovely to have an addition to the team. I'm sure you'll be hearing more from Emily as the weeks tick by. But you're going to have to put up with me and Mr. Beeston for this evening as we discuss the Stockport game plus some other stuff. Really, we've got a few questions from you guys, and we've got 1 or 2 talking points as well. But before, of course, we go any further, Charlie, how are you, my friend?
I am very well, thank you. I just want to very much echo the thoughts. Obviously, you were on Tuesday night with Emily. I wasn't. I never listen to the podcast, honestly, when I'm not on it. I used to, obviously, religiously before I started doing it. But now it kind of doesn't really hit the same because we talk in the group chat and such anyway. So we kind of gather each other's opinions. But obviously, I wanted to listen to Tuesdays. And I thought it was exceptional. It was one of the best I've listened to in a while, which means nothing because I don't listen to them. But it was really, really good. And I agree very much that Emily's a really good addition. And I'm looking forward to potentially doing a podcast with her at some point in the near future as well. Your light just suddenly went off.
I was playing with my ring light a little bit there.
Were you? Is that what it was?
It's a good job I put the word light at the end of that statement.
I was you sort of beat me to it. So I'm going to say we go from Gary's stool to your ring. But we can...
What a start. We're on form tonight. Wow.
We certainly are. Now, just before we kind of delve into the football, I think we'd better mention the thing that is happening on Sunday, because there is a chance. In fact, I believe we were trying to sort out the schedules the other day, weren't we, Chris, in the group chat? And I don't believe we will be recording the next podcast on Sunday. Instead, that will be coming to you guys live on Monday evening, because Sunday, Gary is busy doing something, Chris. Now, obviously, we're not going to actually wish him luck on this podcast because, let's be honest, he's not going to listen. But of course, as you probably will all know by now, Gary running the London Marathon. He was down in London today getting himself all ready, scoping out start points. I don't quite know what that means. You're not just all start together, but, obviously, I was only joking. Good luck to him on Sunday. And thank you so much from the whole of the Stacey West team on behalf of Gary for everyone that has already sponsored him. If you still wish to do so, there is still time. Good luck, Gary.
Yeah, thank you everyone that's sponsored him, because of course he's raising money for the Lincoln City Foundation. That's the main reason that we keep going on about it. Really, it's not really for his ego. I'm really hoping that once this is over and done with, though, and he's raised a lot of money, and you guys have contributed to the foundation, that he will stop going on about running. That's all of our wishes. So we'll find out. But we've all got our fingers crossed for that. Good luck, all etc. to guys, I suppose. But mainly thank you for sponsoring him and raising money for a fantastic cause in the foundation.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you on that one. Now, I did say that was the bit that we wanted to get out of the way before we started talking about football. So let's start talking about the football. Now, we don't have a game to kind of review. You guys did that superbly on Tuesday night, looking back at that Bolton game, which, for the record, I very much agree with everything you said in the fact that it was just fun. It was just a fun game. Of course, a little bit later on after the ad break, we will talk about Stockport and start to preview that. But before we did that, we, as we typically do when we don't actually have that much to talk about in terms of news, we asked patrons for some questions so that we can discuss them on the podcast. And in the Discord, there was plenty that came in. So we've got plenty to discuss, haven't we, Chris? And we're going to start off looking ahead to next season. 2 games left of this season. You're always going to start talking about the next year and kind of ambitions for the next year. So we had 2 questions come in that were very similar. So we said that we were kind of going to group them together. First of all, there was a question that came in asking, what does the team look like next season? What do we think the team looks like next season with the existing contracts? Who do we kind of suspect to leave? And then on top of that, the question was asked as well on Tuesday's podcast, I think it was, Gary discussed specifically what he thinks the squad needs for next season, primarily just a left back, as well as kind of replacing anybody else who does sort of leave. But what do we think about that? So, Chris, I'm going to throw it over to you. First of all, let's talk about the players that are with us now that we maybe don't expect to be with us next year. They're not dying, but out of contract.
I really struggle to see many leave, to be honest, in terms of that are out of contract that will leave for free. I know we have 1-year options on a number of the players. Of course, we're not privy to which ones, but we're led to believe that the majority of those that are out of contract, the club do have an option on. Obviously, it's up to the club as to whether they decide they want to extend that contract of said player, or whether we want to free those wages up to put towards a different player. But Ben House is one that was rumoured to be out of contract, and I'd absolutely be keeping him 100%. I think we discussed that on Tuesday. Particularly in the last 2 or 3 matches, I think he's really shown his worth in that 10 role. I think he's had a real impact in that regard. I'd keep Jacko, as mentioned on Tuesday. Yeah, there really isn't many players who are out of contract that I think we shouldn't be activating that extra year. Now, some of the fringe players like Ali Smith, like we know he's going to be leaving the club. Jay Ben, probably I expect him to be leaving the club. So, yeah, it's difficult to really foresee too much change, and that's obviously a real positive. The only real question marks are we going to sell? Are we going to lose Sean Roughan? But if we do, we'll get a big compensation fee. And will Pordy O'Connor move on to pastures new, or will he sign a new deal here? I think most of us expect Pordy to leave, but we don't know that yet. So I'm kind of with Gaz really on that, by the way, in that if we kicked off next season with the players that do have options all staying, and the players we expect to leaving. So we expect to sell Ethan Arahan, we expect to lose Pordy O'Connor, we expect to lose Sean Roughan. Let's just say that does actually happen. What do we actually need before we kick off next season to be competitive? It's a left back, isn't it? Now, I think the squad needs other bits and bobs as well to improve it. But yeah, it's only really a left back that we'd really be missing. And I think that just goes to show, not just the fact that Sean Roughan is the only player that realistically is a natural left back, but just how influential he is in that role. But yeah, in terms of the other players, I'm sure we'll touch on that in a moment, but in terms of the other players, it's quite difficult to see a huge amount of change, really.
I'm with you. I think obviously the big question mark, first of all, is around is realistically around Pordy O'Connor. I think there's kind of been the general acceptance, even though we've not heard anything from the club, there probably is kind of this general acceptance that he will move on. And it's kind of a handshake at the end of the season. Thank you for what you've done. Go out and enjoy the next few years of your career. Apart from if he ends up playing against us. And there's been many a debate, like I say, within the Discord, for example, there's been many a debate about what's his level at, where does he go? Is it top end League One? Is it bottom end Championship? Where is his next move if he does kind of move on? And again, he's the sort of player that I really like. I think we've all really liked for everything that he's done over the past 3 years. But also, and it's potentially a little controversial on this, he's replaceable. Like a centre-back of his quality, I think, yes, okay, you have to spend the money to get that. But I do think there are other options out there that can hit that similar sort of level. I'm not saying they'll always be as good as him because of how good he has been in certain games. But I think there are those kind of options available. And also, when you look at the strength that we have in those kind of positions, especially if we are playing a 4 at the back, we still have Adam Jackson next year, Tom Hamer, Lewis Montsma, just to kind of pick out 3 immediate potential options to be playing there. Then, yeah, right, it's kind of course, we'll miss him, but will we miss him quite as much as we worried that we would do? Maybe even 6 months ago when we were having this same conversation, maybe not.
Yeah, I think that the shape changes help with that. I think the fact that we're now playing a back 4, which of course requires 2 central defenders rather than a back 3, which requires 3. If you're playing a back 3, then you need 5 probably in the squad, all of similar quality. If you're playing a back 4, you ideally want 4 centre backs in the squad, but you can get away with 3 and someone else that can fill in there. So just the requirement to add in that position, just bodies has decreased this summer. But I'd like to say, I really hope Pordy stays. By the way, I really, really do hope he stays. I think I do think he's been our most consistent, our best centre back this season. Tom Hamer's really impressed recently, but Pordy's been doing it for 3 years, and he's really grown over those 3 years. And that's the reason why it's unlikely, or we're feeling like it's unlikely that we're going to be able to keep hold of him, because his worth, his value as a professional footballer, like wage-wise, is just significantly higher now than it was when we signed him, because we signed him as a high-performing League 2 centre-back in a mid-table League 2 team. So, that he's improved significantly. So could we replace him with a player, that kind of was at the stage of their career that Pordy was when we signed Pordy? Yeah, I think he's replaceable in that regard. Is he replaceable directly for a player that's of an equal quality and a similar style right now? No, I don't think he is, actually. I think that's going to be a bit out of our price range. But I think the hole that he's leaving will be less obvious because of the shape change and how well Tom Hamer particularly has slotted into that position, which we weren't sure whether he would do in a back 4, because he'd never really played centre-back in a back 4 consistently in his career, and he's taken to it like a duck to water. So, yeah, I'm not as concerned about it as I was a few months ago, certainly. I'd still like him to stay, but I'm with you. I don't think it's as big a problem as maybe we all thought it maybe would be.
Well, let's talk about a player who is probably going to be the hardest player in the squad to replace. And I think if I said that sentence a year ago, 6 months ago, we'd probably all think I was talking about Ethan Errant. I'm not. Sean Roughan, especially in that kind of out-and-out left-back role of a 4-2-3-1. Chris, we all wax lyrical. It's not just Gary, as much as Gary does it maybe to an extreme. It's not just Gary, who absolutely loves Sean Roughan at Lincoln City. No, excuse me. I think this left-back role in the 4-back actually makes him considerably better as well. That's not like to downplay what he was doing in the 3-back, but we just mentioned off air his kind of attacking power that he's now got as well, making some of those overlapping runs down the left-hand side that he never really did before, when he used to get criticism when he was playing in that left wing-back role originally under after Mark Kennedy, etc. I just think now he is one of, if not the best players at the football club. He's my player of the season. I know that you and Ben kind of had him potentially second behind Tendai Dorico at the time. Just talk to me about Sean Roughan, how good he is and how hard he's going to be to replace him. With that, what do we need to find to replace him? And is it 2 players to fill 1 position? Well,
that's the question. This is my fault that we're talking about this tonight, ladies and gents, by the way, because I thought it'd be an interesting discussion, because I thought it would be more than anything fun just to look into it, mainly because we know we kind of joke about, particularly Gary jokes at how much he likes Sean Roughan and how highly he rates him. And I think all of us on the podcast maybe feel he is an underrated player generally amongst the fan base. But I hadn't looked at any of this kind of in-depth player data for ages. I tend to look at team data rather than individual data too often. And I thought, let's just see, how does Sean Roughan actually stack up compared to the rest of League One in his position? And I'm not just picking out the good things here, guys. This is just pure facts. This information has come from FOTMob. So Y-Scout wasn't as accessible today because I used Gary's login and he isn't in front of his laptop, so he can't let me in. So I've used FOTMob. But again, it's a relatively reliable data source, certainly. But in terms of expected assists over the season, Sean Roughan has had the most out of any player in his position. Now, he's only actually got 3 assists, but he has an expected double the amount that he actually has got. And what that means is he's putting the ball on a plate, but the shots are being missed. That's kind of what that really means. So this is from like an attacking and a passing perspective, which is maybe an element that is potentially criticised at times amongst the fan base. But total successful passes compared to other players in League One, he's in the 86th percentile. So that means there's only 14% of other players in his position that have had more successful passes. And considering that we don't play a hugely possession-based style, I think that's pretty good. But these ones are really, really great for me. Accurate long passes, the most in League One for a player in his position. Chances created, the most in League One for a player in his position. And successful crosses, the highest total amount of successful crosses from a player in his position. Like, these are things that maybe don't always get seen as positives in Sean's game, but they are. Like, you can't argue with facts. These are facts, and he's the best in League One at those things, which is just incredible. In terms of the things that may be less surprising, or touches, just overall touches, he had 98th percentile, so only 2% of other defenders see more of the ball than Sean Roughan does. That shows that he's keen to receive possession. It shows that he's trusted by his teammates. And then there's the stuff that we probably none of us are going to be surprised at, which is his defensive metrics. But it just goes to show that he is as good as we thought we were from a defensive point of view. So 92nd percentile for tackles, 80th percentile for duels won, 87th percentile for interceptions. And these next 3 are really, really good. So recoveries, 100th percentile. So he's won the ball back. So that's kind of pouncing on second balls. That's tackles. That includes all recoveries. More than anyone else in his position in the whole of League One. He's won it back in the final third, 97th percentile. So only 3% of other defenders in his position have won it back in the final third, more than he has. And he's only been dribbled past, which basically he hardly ever gets dribbled past. He's in just the 3rd percentile for being dribbled past. So no one gets past him on a one-on-one, which I think all of us have said for years, even ever since he's broken into the team. That's his biggest attribute. And this last one really surprised me, though, bearing in mind that he's a defender. Fouls committed, 22 over the whole season. Fouls won, 37. That's a ridiculous kind of delta there. So, yeah, I appreciate that's a lot of numbers. But what this just really shows is that Sean Roughan's going to be really flipping hard to replace. And, his offensive metrics are really stacking up against other players in League One, like really, really stacking up. His defensive metrics probably don't surprise anybody, but they do add up to what we thought they were. He's just really bloody good, and he doesn't commit many fouls either. And I think that's a big, maybe often underrated and undernoticed metric. Ben House has committed, I think, 40 more fouls than Sean Roughan has this season. So that's quite a big difference, isn't it? So yeah, I hope this doesn't come across as just kind of waxing lyrical about Sean Roughan and we were right, everyone else is wrong. That's not the point here. The point is, I thought it'd be funny to see whether Gaz was right or not, hoping to poke a little bit of fun at him. Turns out he is. Yeah, he is absolutely right. Sean Roughan is statistically one of, if not the best player in League One in his role. So that's going to leave a really big hole in our squad next season if a team comes in for him. Now, again, he is out of contract at the end of the season, but because of his age, we would be required to be paid a relatively significant development fee because he's been here since he was 16 years old. He's played a hell of a lot of games for us. That would require a decent chunk of money. Now, that chunk of money would be decided by a tribunal, I believe. So would a championship club be willing to take a punt on a third party deciding how much they have to pay us for a player of Sean Roughan's ability from League One? I'm not sure whether a Championship club would do that for a left back, but for an outside centre back who's left-footed, they're pretty sought after. So maybe they would. So I think it's going to be it'd be tough to replace someone who has got the all-round solidity and consistency that Sean has shown this season. And so, yeah, I appreciate that's a long-winded answer, Charlie, but yeah, I think it.
Look, we're sat here talking about a player in his early 20s who has played well over 100 games for Lincoln City. First of all, we are talking about an exceptional player, one who, again, we've both absolutely loved, and we've both loved the eye test with Sean Roughan. And the stats do very much back that up, don't they? Now, there was a comment in here. Here we go. From Don Clark. Increase wage for Roughan, 3-year contract, make him captain. Now, we'll leave the make him captain part for the minute. Increase wage and 3-year contract. So first of all, as Chris just mentioned regarding the tribunal, if he was to leave this summer from another club, we will only ever get anything if we offer him a contract. So no matter what, the club will be offering him a contract. And then, of course, it depends on how on kind of what he wants to do. If you remember last time, it seemed as though he wanted just to kind of wait to sign the contract with us, see what his options were for a little bit, and then he signed it a little bit later than some other players had signed on back 2 years ago, which I totally respect. I think that shows a player that's actually got his head screwed on. So, fair play to him for that, and it wouldn't surprise me if that happens again this year. Now, Chris, I have a couple of kind of points to say. I think Sean Roughan, if Sean Roughan is the sort of player that would help us and move with us into the Championship if we were able to get there over the next year or two, right? And he would be able to thrive in that position, and then we would be able to sell him on for more than what we are ever dreaming of at the minute. However, as you've just stated, are a Championship club going to really take a punt on a left back and spend big bucks? That tribunal, it's really difficult to kind of try and estimate it, but we're going to be looking at high 6 figures at the bare minimum, and that's at the absolute minimum. So, on the one hand, okay, get him to sign a new contract, let him stay for 2-3 more years, but if we don't get promoted to the Championship within his next contract, is this the point where we will get the most amount of money for Sean Roughan? And I think that there is a chance that is the case, because I think then his value probably depends more on where we are as a club rather than where he is as a player, because I think his ability is already there and his potential can already be seen. So there's a little part of me in the back of my mind that thinks over the long term, talking the next 5 years, are we better off letting go of Sean Roughan this summer? Now, I really want to say no, because I want us to have the best possible players on the football pitch. I would say let's not let Ethan Errol go. Let him run down his contract in 2 years' time if he wants. I don't care, because we'll have had him for 2 years. But we can't work like that. We, as a football club, they don't want to work as we'll constantly have the best players, yes, sure, but we'll never get anything for them, and we'll kind of just be standing still. Other clubs in our division do that, and that's fine. But we don't want to be like that. We want to be more sustainable. We want to make sure we're the right to the future. So, Chris, let's say, hypothetically, this is the peak of what we'd get for Sean Roughan. To put some numbers on it, give you a hypothetical. He signs a 2-year contract. We can get £1 million of the tribunal this summer, or we can get 600k from next summer from a club purchasing. Then what do you do? And I think this is the point where we're sat here kind of trying to talk in hypotheticals. This is probably what the club are genuinely going through here, as to what Sean is. Where do we stand with that, and what should we do?
Yeah, well, the thing is that the club will offer him a deal, because any of these things that we're mentioning, they'll only happen if the club offer him a deal. He can leave on a free if we don't offer him a contract. But obviously, we're going to offer him a contract. That would be just stupid not to. I think the idea would be the club would tie him down to a 3-year deal with an agreed amount that a club would need to come in and pay to take him off our hands, and hope that would be my best outcome. That would be my preferred outcome personally. It kind of protects us in the long term, and it gives Sean an out if he outgrows us. Now, there's an argument that he potentially has outgrown us at the moment because we just heard those stats, haven't we, in terms of how well he is in terms of, or how well he's performing compared to other players in his position in League One. And if you've got a team in the Championship that likes to shop in League One, that want to kind of cherry pick the best players from League One, a little bit like Crystal Palace do with the Championship, if there's that sort of team in the champ that want to shop in League One, and there's a couple of them, isn't there? Then Sean probably is the sort of player they're going to be looking at. So, it's a real tough one. But in regards to the comment in the chat here regards, increased wage, 3-year contract, make him captain. I don't like kind of guaranteeing the captaincy. So personally, I wouldn't guarantee that to anybody. But I think he'd be certainly part of a leadership group now, which is something that he's certainly grown into. He feels like,
which is crazy to say for a player of his age, isn't it?
Yeah, but he feels like an experienced, influential member of the squad. He seems a sort of player that, for want of a better phrase, gives a shit, and he's got his head screwed on, hasn't he? So, I certainly wouldn't want to guarantee that, but I think he'd certainly be up the pecking order in terms of the who would be close to it. I imagine he will be offered an increased wage. I wouldn't like us to offer an increased wage above our kind of wage structure for any player, no matter who they are or how good they are, because we're Lincoln City supporters. Doesn't matter how good a footballer is. We want to have a football club to support in the next few years. That's the whole reason that we want to be sustainable. But is he likely to get offered a higher wage than he's probably on now? Well, I think his squad status probably dictate him to be towards the top end of our wage bill or wage budget should he be offered a new deal. I don't know this, but I imagine that. And a 3-year deal, I think would be ideal for everybody. Will he sign it? Well, it depends what else is out there. This is a great question from Roy, just before we move on from this topic.
Yes.
And he said, if you had the choice, who would you keep, Rowan or Pawdy? And I'd say Sean Roughan. And I've just defended keeping Pawdy O'Connor. But 100%, I think, of those two options, for so many different reasons, by the way, for so many different reasons, I would keep Sean Roughan over Pawdy. And that is not because I don't want Pawdy O'Connor to stay at the football club, but it's because Sean is ours, effectively. He's come up from our youth team. That adds something. He's one of our own, and I think that can never be understated. That means that it's pure profit when we do sell him. He's younger, but as we've seen, he's one of the highest performing players in his position. Would probably be more difficult to replace. We haven't got a direct replacement already in the squad. So yeah, for me, of those, if I had to pick, if I really, really had to pick between those two, I'd keep Sean Roughan. Charlie, would you?
100%. I don't really think that's. I don't really think we can really properly debate that, because I think that, like you said, there are a number of different factors. Sean Roughan's, first of all, ability, not to discredit Pawdy's, but Sean Roughan's ability, Sean Roughan's age, Sean Roughan's current saleability. I just think everything at the minute is in Sean Roughan's favour, and there's only kind of one or two categories, if you like, that you can really give to Pawdy. So yeah, for me, absolutely Roughan on that. So yeah. Now, the one thing I do just want to add with this, Chris, because we are obviously talking about the hypothetical of Sean Roughan potentially moving on in the summer, and let's say he did move on to a Championship club for some kind of a tribunal fee. Now, we're talking about that potentially being high six figures, potentially even hitting a 7-figure. We don't know. We're purely guesswork, but kind of they're guesstimates, aren't they? Because of what we've sort of been able to kind of work out and reading between the lines of that. Now, we've also said that he's going to be the hardest player to replace in the squad. And it might cost us a bit to replace somebody like him, because you're going to want to bring in somebody of at least somewhat similar caliber, and then maybe bring in two players. So one who you can kind of do it for the next year or two, and then maybe one who is a little bit like a Sean Roughan, who can then build into it over like a year or two time period as well. Now, the only interesting thing is, as far as I'm aware, when it comes to tribunals, sometimes that can take a while for the actual price to be set in stone. I believe we had it with JJ McKinnon. I believe we may have had it with Jack Moylan as well, or I think we didn't with Jack Moylan in the end, because at the last minute an agreement was reached, if I'm not mistaken. I definitely know that we had it with JJ McKinnon anyway, where it went to tribunal for the fee, and I believe that was quite a few months down the line when that final fee was actually set and confirmed, and the club could even begin to start planning cash flow. So with that in mind, if we did lose Sean Roughan this summer, Do you think it actually makes it that little bit harder to replace him in this transfer window coming up because of not having that exact number to be able to predict, even though we can have a rough framework?
In terms of investing that money into a player to directly replace him for now, yeah, it does. Because, I believe one of the reasons that we brought Sam Clucas in, not to bring that kind of open that kind of worms again, but one of the reasons that we brought Sam Clucas in January was because he didn't cost a fee. He's a player that really wanted to join the club, but he was brought in because we might lose Ethan Roughan, and we couldn't afford to replace Ethan Roughan and bring a player in of a similar quality for a similar cost before we'd received any money for him. We have to sell before we can invest that money again. So if it takes months for that money to be kind of confirmed and come through, then yeah, it will impact this transfer window. Of course it will. So good point. Probably another reason why we probably really desperately do want to tie him down to a new deal if we can. But ultimately, if it is the ball kind of is in Sean's court to an extent. If another club does come in for him and he wants to go to that club and they're willing to pay whatever the tribunal is, then we are kind of powerless to that. The question is, will a Championship club come in and want to pay that? I, a couple of weeks ago, would have said, I'm not so sure. And that wasn't a negative to Sean, but it was more the ecosystem, I think, in the Championship. But seeing those how he compares to other players in League One in that position, like those metrics are outstanding. Like, and if we can see those, like Championship clubs are going to have far more detailed analysis of that. They can see them as well. They're going to know. So it's not going to be a secret to a Championship club that Sean Roughan's a good player. So I'm starting to think more and more will be interested. But it depends a little bit on economics, doesn't it? In terms of what does the market look like? What sort of markets are Championship clubs kind of shopping in? Because we haven't seen a huge number of big sales in terms of quantity in the last year or two from the Championship from League One into the Championship. So I would tell you what, I'd be really disappointed with if he goes to a League One club, and that it wouldn't be it'd be a similar situation to Pordian, that the ball's in his court. If he can get offered and quadruple his wage elsewhere, a club that's bigger, etc. I've got no issue with Sean, but I'd be disappointed as a Lincoln fan. I'd be if a champion. Let's say Huddersfield again decides to offer him 12 grand a week, for example. So Sean has basically no option but to accept that, really. It would annoy him. That would annoy me and disappoint me. The fact that because he deserves, if he isn't playing with us, he should be playing in the Championship. So I'd be disappointed to see him in League One. But I don't want to start a rumor here. I have no idea whether Huddersfield Town will be offering that, and I think it'd be a very unwise move, knowing the unrest currently happening going on at Huddersfield Town. But hey, that's by the by. We've probably spoken about Sean Roughan enough, but I know we could do it for ages, but. It's an interesting discussion though, isn't it? Because he's a player who none of us other than you had picked as the player of the season. I think I might be changing my mind on that now, ladies and gents. It's a player who, in terms of the players that are out of contract, Paudie O'Connor has probably had the most attention in terms of our discussions, and probably most of the discussions in the fan base that I've heard kind of on match days and things. Sean Roughan's that player that's come kind of a little bit under the radar. Maybe it's his age, because we know there's a chance that
I've got to say, I think that's probably because the worst case scenario with him is we either keep him or we get money, and there isn't kind of there's not kind of this fear of crap, we're losing another one for free. No
outcome is going to be awful.
Yeah,
it's just kind of what would be the best outcome for us, and what would be an acceptable one, and what would be the worst possible outcome, and it's kind of out of our hands, isn't it? And that's maybe the frustrating part. But hey, it is what it is.
But what a lovely position that is. There is a chance that we either keep him, and we love that because of how good Sean Roughan is, or we potentially have our record sale.
Maybe.
For those to be the options, I'm really not complaining.
Until we sell Ethan Roughan, of course.
Of course, which could happen in the exact same window. Maybe we will need a big rebuild the way that we're talking. Right, so I said we had some questions to try and fill some time, and we have just spoken for 35 minutes on the first question. So what we're going to do is no. Do you know what did we say on WhatsApp last night? Oh, we'll just pretend this is going to be another short one, even though we say that every week. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for a quick advert break. We'll say hello to YouTube, and then we will carry on. We've got a couple more questions before then we start looking ahead to Stockport County on Saturday. So, see you in a couple of minutes, Spotify and other podcast users. Aha, hello, YouTube.
Hello, YouTube.
I need to make a note of that time frame because I need to get Gary or Ben or somebody to upload this podcast.
35-ish.
Yeah,
I've
got 35:15. Yes, he's already uploading the preview for me. I have no Wi-Fi still at the minute, which isn't ideal. So, good evening, YouTube. Hello, everyone who is currently on board. We have got Roy Rogers, evening. We have Walter, good evening. Andy, Dave, Veloci Tops, good evening to all of you guys. Harry Jackson, good evening, sir. John Booth, good evening. How are we doing? Is everybody doing well? Don, we have said hello, but we'll say it again. Steve Barton, I see that you came in a little bit late. I mean, that's just disgraceful, but we'll let you off. Hope you guys are all enjoying the evening and looking forward to Stockport on Saturday. Are you going, Chris, by any chance, or...?
Unable to, sadly. Yeah, unable to. Prior engagement. And it's sold out now, isn't it? Which is brilliant, by the way. Really great. Sold out on away end in the last away game of the season. That doesn't matter in the slightest. And that's great. That's so good. So good.
I do really enjoy that because I think there's always... that last game of the season can go one or two ways. You can either be a nervous wreck for whatever reason. Like, honestly, I was before the Portsmouth game last year. Even though it would have been kind of a miraculous kind of run to actually get us there. And we didn't, I was going to say we hadn't earned it over the course of the whole season, I think it's probably fair, because we were there because of that late run. But I still just felt so nervous going into that last game of the season at home to Portsmouth. Or they can go the total other way, like the last away game of the season, for example, with Morecambe a couple of years back, where everybody was just out on the piss and enjoying themselves. And it was just a really good day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it can always go two ways when you start getting towards the end of the season, can't it?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's good. Right, let's get back going. And let's do it. And welcome back to those people who just had an advert, so those people that aren't on YouTube. So, we have got a couple more questions, like I stated just before the ad break. And we're going to start off with a bit of a fun one. It's always a good one to have towards the end of a season. Who, Chris, we're going to start with come down. Who would you like to come down from the Championship and be in our division next year? Give us your three ideal clubs. And when I say this, I don't mean Burnley, Sheffield, and Leeds. We're talking about realistic.
The ones that could actually. This is really tough. And League Two is easier. We'll do that in a moment. This is tough because it's a little bit like the Wrexham discussion. Do you want them to stay down and fail, or do you want them to go up and out the way? And it's like head versus heart. I'm kind of like that with the teams that are coming down. Do I really want Luton to come down, who have got parachute payments from the Premier League in League One? Like, no, I don't. But do I want Stoke? And I know it's only an outside chance that Stoke can come down now, but do I want Stoke to come down because we haven't played them for ages? It'd be a good, decent away day, you think. And I kind of think, but they're going to have shed loads of money to spend. So I'm kind of torn a little bit between local games, good away days, and also nice away followings and good atmospheres at Sincil Bank, and also teams that are not going to be blowing others out of the water financially. And I'm kind of torn, but I think I've probably settled on definitely Hull. Because we haven't played, the only season that we've played them in League One is when it was in COVID. So we've not been there with fans in the ground. I haven't played Hull for flipping ages. I can't remember I think the last time I remember going to Hull was when we beat them at the KC Stadium. I think it was a Stuart Binson penalty in 2002, 2003 season. It might have even been the first game at their ground. So that's the last time I went to Hull. So that was a while ago. I'd like them to come down. Derby, I actually think they're a team that we're not going to be too scared of, really. And also local-ish, good away following. I'm a little bit torn on the third one, Charlie. A little bit torn. I'm going to ask you to go now, and I'll see if that influences my third choice.
So for the record, I'm very much with you, head v heart. If we're talking I I find it a little bit different now, because if we were having this conversation last year, my mind would purely be based on away days. Back when I was kind of doing all of the away days, obviously not this season, so kind of my opinion changed on that. If we were talking on the kind of heart of away days and how fun they'd be, Hull, I think Luton, because it would be good to go to a team who were in the Premier League only 2 seasons before then. That would be quite enjoyable. And then probably on top of that, Derby, and get a Saturday Derby away game. But again, that's if we were talking about what would be fun away days and what can just be fun. That's not how I'm now looking at it. If we're talking about the teams I would probably want to come down, I think Oxford. I think they are the side that could probably they would do less damage in League One, I think, than Hull. Hull have plenty of money. They would obviously do less damage than Luton. I think they'd probably just about do less damage than Derby as well. So I'm going to say Oxford. And then actually the 2 teams who are at the bottom, I think Plymouth, I always love doing Plymouth away. And I think I like them in League One. I actually just quite like Plymouth as a football club as well. And I think if they came down, they would do well. But I think they would be a side who would steady themselves, make playoffs one year to then go for a title push or something like that the next year. So I'd maybe quite like them to come down. And then the other one, Cardiff, who are second bottom, they're in a little bit of free fall. Yes, they've got some money behind them. But again, I think they've had a few kind of rocky seasons, really. And I think it's probably sooner or later for them to be in League One. So I wouldn't mind them taking up that spot. And again, that's probably a last elimination because of the other teams that are down there. So I'm going Oxford, Cardiff, Plymouth.
Oh, very interesting. So you don't care at all about the away day anymore, do you? No. So, yeah, I think Cardiff's my third one. I think just because we haven't played, again, I just like the novelty of it, really. And they're a team that's been circling the drain of the Championship for a couple of seasons as well. So, off the back of that, you expect them maybe not to have that immediate push. They feel a bit to me like when Derby first came down, Sunderland first came down, Ipswich did. Maybe have the expectation to go straight back up again, but maybe aren't necessarily equipped to do so. So, yeah, I think probably Cardiff, because it'd be fun again. It'd be fun. But I completely buy the Oxford argument. I think they'd be the sort of team that's, you'd imagine financially aren't going to be blowing us out the water as much as some of the other ones would do. Though, of course, they would still be considering more than we will. Plymouth, again, I like Plymouth, but we've played them quite a lot recently. And I'd like their Great Escape story as well, from the outside looking in. I'd love them to stay up because it's just a good story. I like the fan base generally. I like the club generally. But I'm not desperate to go back there. I'm not desperate for us to play them again. So, yeah, even though, again, I think financially maybe they wouldn't necessarily have as big a budget as some other clubs that could do. The only one I really don't want to come down is Luton. I think that's the big one. I definitely don't want Luton to come down. Obviously, terrible ground. They love it. And, you say you can't polish a turd, but it's our turd, isn't it? And I get that completely. I played rugby football for a number of years. That's how we felt about our ground. Like, it's awful, but it's ours. But as an away fan, it's terrible. They'll have loads of money to spend. They'll be desperate to get back into the Championship. It would be horrible having Luton back down. So definitely not Luton. Ideally not Plymouth because it's a long trip and also we've played them loads recently. But anyone else, I'd be happy with. So my three, I think, would be Cardiff, Hull and Derby.
I like that. And it could make for a really interesting League One next season. So flipping it on its head then, League Two, the teams that you'd like to come up. We've currently got Doncaster, Port Vale, Bradford and Walsall, who are the top 4. AFC Wimbledon still with an outside chance of making it into the top 3, as do Notts County, although those two probably a little bit unlikely now. What do you think in terms of those sides coming up?
Well, this is different this year to last year because last season, obviously Wrexham and Stockport were 2 teams that came up from League Two with huge budgets. Wrexham, of course, primarily. Stockport had a big budget, but nothing compared to Wrexham. They increased it significantly this summer to have a go, and they've done really well. We're going to, of course, talk about Stockport in a moment. But I don't feel that any team that's coming up from League Two is going to have an ambition or even an expectation that I think some teams will have had this season. So I think both Stockport and Wrexham will have had an expectation to at least reach the playoffs in League One. Like financially, in terms of budgets, they were spending the money that should get them there. And don't get me wrong, it's worked, hasn't it? So it's not like they've failed. But I don't think there'll be a single team that's currently participating in League Two with the expectation of doing anything other than staying in League One next season. So I think we can afford to just enjoy these ones, really. So definitely Bradford. I think we've all got a soft spot for Bradford for obvious reasons. And I've only ever been to Valley Parade once, so I'd love to go. I'd love to go back there. My mate Joe, who I sit next to at games, he went to uni in Bradford, so he kind of knows all the good places to go. So that would definitely be an away day for us next year. Donny, again, because it's local. Notts County, because it's local. I want local games. I love away days. I love it with big crowds, big atmospheres. So definitely Bradford, definitely Doncaster, definitely Notts County, definitely not Grimsby though, because I want them to be perennially worse than us, and I would just hate to see them be successful. So I'd like them to get to the playoff final and lose like 9-0 at Wembley. That'd be brilliant. But yeah, I don't mind really for the fourth. Just that, those three plus one that isn't Grimsby.
I wouldn't mind AFC.
Maybe, you know what? Sorry to interrupt. Maybe Colchester, because we all want Danny Cowley to do well, don't we?
Yes, yes and no. Yes, we do.
I wish him well. Definitely.
No, I still very much do. I just don't want to sit there on Twitter the day they win the playoff final and scroll through and just see Lincoln Twitter being full of conspiracy theories about our club and why we didn't bring them in when we were without a manager and such. But that's a different story, isn't it? So yeah, I think I'm kind of with you when it comes to League Two. I think honestly, I'm looking at the top 10, and obviously it's realistically the top 4. 3 of the top 4 are guaranteed to be coming up. I don't really care. I think all of those teams that will come up will give us a good game. We'll have a good away day, etc. But I think where we're looking at fighting next year, where at least we hope we're looking at fighting next year, I don't really see any of those teams really going up to be fighting in the top 10. You'll always get one surprise package as you do every year, but I don't really believe that there's going to be 2 or 3 of them like there is this year fighting up near the top. So for that, I don't really mind. Doncaster, I don't mind. They're all right, to be fair. Port Vale had a really good away day at Port Vale a couple of years back. Walsall would certainly be an interesting one as well. And of course, then, like I said, Bradford would be great to have in our division again. And would be great to go to Valley Parade for that one. Now, there is one more question before we move on, Chris, to a preview. And that question is just a bit of a personal one, actually, to myself and you. When did you watch your first Lincoln game? Who was it against? Any particular memories of it? And what and who got you support in the Imps?
Well, this is really difficult to answer because the answer is I don't actually know exactly which game it was. I think we've whittled it down because I think it was Carlisle at home in 1996. Right. But that is it's not a definite. And it all started because in the school holidays, I think I was 5 or 6 years old. School holidays, and I think they still do them. They're probably called different things now. But the football in the community ran these kind of like soccer schools, kind of in half terms, summer holidays, that sort of thing. And I used to love them. I used to go on them all the time. And but the very first one I went on, I think you had to be 6 years old to go on it. So as soon as I turned 6, I'd been asking for months and months and months. Oh, can I go? Can I go? Can I go? And I finally turned 6, and I went. And then as part of that, you got a ticket for the next home game. And
nice.
Yeah, so I think, and I could be wrong here, but I think it was the season that, as it was known then, the Limpave stand, what we now know as the GBM or the Co-op stand. I think it was the year that opened. I can't remember the score. I can't really remember anything about the game, but I just remember falling in love. In fact, while you're saying yours, I'm going to find this quote from Bobby Robson. Some of you listening will know exactly what quotes I'm going to bring up here. You tell us yours, because I want to read this out afterwards, because it absolutely is the epitome of what I felt. So I'll leave you to do yours while I do a very quick Google.
Okay, so my first game, 27th of August, 2011. We drew 1-1 at home, Friday night. It was for my 8th birthday, to make you feel nice and old. My parents paid for me to be a mascot. They knew I love football, hadn't been to Lincoln yet. And, my dad wanted to take me to Lincoln, and I did my first game as a mascot. Like I said, 1-1 draw. I can't really remember much about the game. I can remember plenty about the day. I can remember the KFC I had afterwards when I got home. I can remember sitting and having an orange juice, sat waiting for for the kit to be delivered that I was going to be wearing. I remember standing around on the pitch, kicking the ball around with a couple of youth players, and then going back home onto FIFA 11 and trying to find those same youth players in the reserves at Lincoln City.
FIFA 11, Jesus Christ!
And there was. I can remember doing all of that. Obviously, I can't really remember the actual game. And the team that I played, which now you're going to ruin because you're going to go ahead and bring up some quote and bring it back to this. So it would have been a perfect segue. Stockport County.
Very good. That would have been a good segue. Sorry, but this is worth reading out. And this is I have this quote saved on my phone somewhere because it's just whenever. You talk to people that don't really like football, never really understood kind of why you follow a team, particularly a lower league team with such passion or even when you're just talking to like people in the pub that about Premier League, and you kind of think, oh, you just don't get it. You just don't get it. So I'm going to read this quote out now, and some of you listening will know exactly what's coming up here. But if this is new for you, then you're welcome because it is beautiful. So it's from Sir Bobby Robson. So he says, "What is a club? In any case, not the buildings or the directors or the people who are paid to represent it. It's not the television contracts, get-out clauses, marketing departments, or executive boxes. It's the noise, the passion, the feeling of belonging, the pride in your city." And this is the bit that always gets me. It's a small boy clambering up stadium steps for the very first time, gripping his father's hand, gawping at the hallowed stretch of turf beneath him, and without being able to do a thing about it, falling in love. Like that's exactly how I felt when I was 6 years old. It is exactly how I felt. And I'm sure we've all had that moment ourselves listening. But that's what a lovely place to end that section, I think.
I absolutely agree. So going up the steps of Edgeley Park on Saturday will be over 1,000 Lincoln fans. Potentially some in fancy dress as well, with it being the last away game of the season. I've seen that started to get mentioned around on social media. So, of course, again, for those of you who are going to enjoy it. But we are facing a Stockport County side who are sat in a little bit of a weird position at the minute, Chris, because they are 5 points off the automatic promotion spots going into the last two games of the season. It's an almost impossibility that they're going to get automatic promotion, especially with the fact that Wrexham and Charlton are playing against each other this weekend as well. I believe also Stockport have Wycombe on the last game of the season, which could be a bit of an interesting affair on that one as well. But they are kind of resigned in a way to being in the playoffs. And they are a very strong side. However, when I did the preview with Hannah, only half an hour before we came on air tonight, which you can now watch on YouTube, by the way, she seemed to suggest that actually the on-paper form doesn't really reflect the way that they're currently playing, and they've not actually been as strong as what their one loss in the last 11 games kind of metric actually portrays. It's going to be a really interesting game. What are your kind of views on Stockport and, first of all, their season as a whole, I guess?
Well, yeah, really strong. That's quite reassuring to hear that from Hannah, to be honest, because everything that I've looked at would suggest that they're very, very good at football. But it's interesting that they're on a superb run. I think they've got 8 home wins in their last 9 home matches. They've not lost at home since the 4th of January, which is a long old time. Only lost 1 game in their last 11, I think, if my maths. And that was a 1-0 away loss to Wrexham, of all teams, actually, in which Stockport definitely deserves something out of the game. They've been really good in terms of results. So it's actually quite reassuring to hear that from Hannah, actually, that they're not maybe as good as the results suggest. Before researching this, I was looking into this thinking they're definitely going to be in the playoffs. So are they going to rotate the team? Are they going to take their foot off the gas just a little bit to avoid injury for the playoffs? But it's not mathematically dead that they can get automatic promotion. So I think they'll go for it. Like, if they win this, they get a favourable result happens on again with Wrexham versus Charlton. Wycombe haven't been as dominant recently as they had earlier in the season. They're certainly susceptible to losing games, as a famous Stacey West quote, of course, from last season. So I was going into this expecting to not have to worry too much about their stats and their performances and how they play, what we can expect, because I thought there'd be a little bit of rotation. But actually, now there is still a mathematical chance. I think they're going to be absolutely going for it. Absolutely going for it. So before we touch on what can we expect from them kind of on the pitch tactically, what are your thoughts in regards to
Yeah, so I like Stockport. And when they came into the league this season, I had predicted them to be better than Wrexham.
Me too.
And I think, to be fair, like Wrexham are kind of the barometer for where you were kind of going to compare Stockport to this year, especially at the start of the season. It's really difficult to start doing 1-24s, as we know. We've tried to do it plenty of times before. But you kind of do put those two quite close together, as obviously actually the end of the season looks as though that's exactly where they are going to be, very close together as well. Only a few points in it either way, no matter what does go ahead and happen. I don't necessarily see them going up and getting an automatic promotion from this point or anything like that. But I think no matter what, they've had a fantastic year. They've had a great campaign, and a lot better than what they probably predicted. Hannah was saying in the summer, she was talking to club officials, and their prediction was, we would like to get to 11th. We would like to be in 11th. And that they're at the bare minimum going to get 5th. Now, how many times have we spoken before about plus and minus 4 to be positive and negative? Now, I'm not quite sure where they are in the budget league table, which is normally where we would compare, or you do.
Yeah, not meant to.
Chris does. Chris is not meant to, but he does.
But it's not 11th. That's all I'm going to say. It's not 11th.
Okay. So let's just say, I can't even say, let's just say hypothetically it's 11th now, because we know it isn't. But
Sorry.
if they, no. But even then, if their expectation, their hope even, was to be in 11th place at the end of the season, then they're going to get playoff with at least a +4. What a great season they've clearly had. And again, this was, from what Hannah was saying, this was going to be a season of bedding in with then a push next year. So how good can they be next year? I think no matter what, it's going to be, again, a really good game, because they're clearly playing some nice football, even if kind of some of the football they've been playing over the course of the year is still better than what it currently is. But Chris, that's kind of my perception on it from the outside looking in. Do the numbers back up those kind of expectations?
Yeah, they do. They're really good. If anything, they've underachieved compared to their underlying numbers. I think the prediction that this isn't to kind of blow our own trumpet, we've got plenty of things wrong as well. But we both kind of had, of the two promoted teams, Stockport finishing higher than Wrexham. As it stands, Wrexham look like they're going to finish ahead of Stockport, but in terms of underlying metrics and underlying numbers and performance data over the course of the whole season, Stockport actually do deserve to be in second place. They're second in the XG table. And Wrexham are just blowing really, really hot. Into the performance metrics aren't brilliant, but they're getting over the line. And they're those intangibles again. They're on the crest of a wave. They're a circus, but that home atmosphere, and it's almost like they suck the ball into the net, isn't it? A little bit like you can only credit it. I don't like it, but you can only credit it. So there is something there, and there is that does get you something, doesn't it? You can't argue that it doesn't. Well, actually, I think Stockport, in terms of their consistency over the whole season, they've been just such a strong side. I would say of all the teams in League One, Stockport County, the team I'm most impressed with out of any other team, any of our opponents. I really like Dave Challoner. I think I would say Stockport's biggest strength, and it's something that I think is so important in football, is their adaptability. Yeah, they've got good pace, they've got good physical strength, they've got good technical ability, they've kind of got good elements about all of that, but they're just super efficient with it. But they're so adaptable. And they don't only change the opposition, but they are so comfortable at being adaptable that changing to an opposition is easy for them than it is lots of other clubs. I just think they're really good. And I don't always say that about teams. I think I've kind of recently been saying in previews about how confident I've been going into games against various opposition, but not so much here. And we've been brilliant, by the way. We have been absolutely brilliant. Our last two games against Reading and against Bolton have been two of the best performances of the whole season. They won't be remembered of that because they didn't count for anything really in the grand scheme of things, but like consistency of performance and level of performance have been like top notch. I think we've been like at our ceiling really for the last 2 games in terms of what's the best possible performance this team could put together in back-to-back games. I think we've probably seen it, really. It's very, very difficult to do that 3 games in a row. And I do think Stockport are a cut above both Reading and Bolton, albeit 2 other promotion or playoff chasing teams as they were at the time. So yeah, basically that's nothing technical there, but they are good. And I've written down all these kind of performance data, but you don't need to know all of it individually. They're good at it all, really. They're good going forward. They're good at the back. They don't give up many chances. They're very efficient with the chances they create. I think the biggest factor here was 2 factors, really. One player in particular that I think is worth mentioning, and just their formation and system is worth mentioning as well, because if you look on most apps and websites about kind of that's like shows team lineups, depending on which app you look at, the formation looks different. And I think that kind of says it all about Stockport, really. Now, they do tend to adapt to opposition quite a lot in terms of their shape, but generally speaking, they tend to defend in a 4-4, some version of a 4-4-2, and then they tend to attack in a what we'd probably say is more of a 3-5-2 shape. It is quite fluid, as mentioned, but you do tend to find that in the back 4, the left wing back pushes onto the front line, left wing tucks inside into the number 10 role, tends to be Will Collar, and the right fullback tends to stay a little bit more reserved and almost form a back 3 at times. But it isn't set like that. What we do tend to see, though, is that their rotations happen most on their left-hand side. So that's Tenderi Darikwa's side, of course, and whoever we choose to play ahead of him. I'm thinking we may choose to keep Rico there because Rico is a bit more experienced than the other players that we've got available in that role. We'll probably need to be a little bit more switched on to the tactical rotations of the opposition. I think our left side, that's going to happen slightly less regularly. So that's something to look out for. There's one consistency, though, across how they play, and that is they always play a front 2. And one of those front 2 is Kyle Wootton. And Kyle Wootton is very good. Very, very good. And I think most people that have been following League One this season, that's hardly a hot take. That's hardly news, is it? And it probably wouldn't surprise you to learn that he's, of the players that are currently in the squad, obviously Louis Barry was there and has since left. Highest number of goals, 11. He's got the highest number of assists as well, 7. And it probably is unsurprising to people to learn that he's had the most aerial duels of any centre forward in League One, and he's in the 94th percentile for winning them. So arguably the best aerial target style forward in the league. But I think what's probably underrated from Kyle Wootton is his defensive work, and 83rd percentile for recoveries and 89th for interceptions. Like, he's really good off the ball as well. He really, really is intelligent with his positioning more than anything on that front line. So he's a player we've got to look out for. And when we're playing our 3-5-2, you're not going to be as worried about that because you've got 3 centre backs to deal with 2 centre forwards. Now we've committed to a back 4 now, and that I think that has so many more pros than cons. But one of the cons, quite simply, is you've got 1 fewer centre back, and if they're playing a front 2, it's a 2v2 in that kind of really key area of the pitch. So it's going to be a really, really big test. Probably the biggest test that whatever the centre-back pairing is on Saturday, with the biggest test that the pairing has had for a few weeks, because we've been playing against an either less effective front 2, like Bolton, for example. One of their centre forwards was making his league debut, and Reading played with 1 up top in the last 2 games. So, yeah, this will be the biggest test that our backline's had for a few weeks. But we're on brilliant form, aren't we, Charlie? Really, really good form. I can't compete against anyone right now. So it kind of depends what mood Stockport are in. I think this does. I think if Stockport have got that real, genuine belief that they could still get automatic and they're going to throw everything at it, could be a tough game for us, but there could be opportunity on the counter. If they have kind of, even if it's subconscious, if they've kind of accepted, we're definitely going to get in the playoffs, we're not going to get promoted automatically, we've got 2 games left, let's not get injured, let's not ruin our chances of having a successful playoff campaign, then I think we've got a real chance of spoiling their day a little bit because we're on such good form. The players are really up for it at the moment. It's obvious that that's the case. So I think a lot of this depends on the mentality of Stockport County, because I don't doubt our mentality for a second. So yeah, tactically a little bit of interest here, but mainly mentality from a Stockport perspective, I think might be a big factor in this one.
Now, one other thing that might be a factor just before we do wrap up, something that Hannah mentioned in the preview, they are a little bit susceptible, and they certainly seem susceptible as well, to an early goal. At the minute, when we think about goal scoring, who's the one player that we think about? James Collins. The question is, though, will he be starting the game? And how much of a difference do we think that makes? Obviously, bearing in mind he played 82 minutes on Monday, having played on Friday at least 35, I believe, off the top of my head. So, do you think he starts? Do you think it makes much of a difference whether he does or whether it's Freddie Draper, for example, against Stockport?
Yeah, I think James Collins starts. You can't score 2 goals.
I really, really hope he does. I really hope he does. I just
completely understand managing minutes, particularly like middle of the season. Completely understand that, you know, if you want the best version of a player of his age, then you can't play 90 minutes of every single game. You know, yes, we want him on the pitch, but we want him on the pitch when he's good, and you're going to get the best version of him if you manage those minutes a little bit. But there's 2 games left. You know, we've not had a full week break. We've had a decent break since Monday, and yeah, it's an opportunity to win, isn't it? So it's an opportunity to keep a really positive end to the season going. And James Collins gives us a better opportunity to win. Since he signed, he's the player in League One that's got the best goals to minutes ratio of any player in the whole of League One. So, yeah, he's got to play. I love Fred. I think Fred's going to have a big season next season. Not necessarily playing second fiddle, but playing as an alternative to James Collins and maybe a little bit of a backup. I think Fred could have a big season next season. But these last 2 games don't make a big difference, do they, in terms of Fred's development? And I think we want to have a good end to the season, and we are doing. Let's give ourselves the best chance of a positive result. Let's give James Collins a start, and let's beat Stockport County. That'd be nice.
If we get 2 more wins, albeit against the opposition that we've got, that is going to be a big, big task. But if we do go ahead and get 2 more wins, we can find ourselves in 8th place. We can go above Bolton, and we can almost match our season last year. Now, even if we were to get maybe 1 win, we could still find ourselves above Huddersfield, above Blackpool, actually potentially above Bolton. We're already above Barnsley. Like, people have differing views on the way that this season's gone overall. If we do finish it strongly, we're going to look back at it. We're going to look back at that table, patting ourselves on the back a little bit compared to some of the teams that we have finished higher than.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. No, I was just enjoying listening. But yeah, you're right. But I don't really care too much about the league table.
I don't, but I know it doesn't matter. I know I will. I know.
Okay, like, so when you look back in the time, that's the years we came that position. Yeah, fair enough. I think what's great, and again, even if we don't get positive results in these next 2 games, we've had a really good positive end to the season. I think it just bodes really well for the summer and next season. That's where my mind's at now, really. Yeah. Because it's not just the games in kind of isolation, is it? Because they're so close to the end of the season, momentum's there, recency bias, etc. It's a big factor for attracting players to the club, isn't it? It's a big factor for starting next season really well. And it's different. Even if let's say we pick up the 15 points or whatever it is we've got so far in these last few games, and we finish the season with that number of points, that'd be great. If we beat Cambridge and we beat Crawley and we beat Burton and we beat Bristol Rovers to pick up those points tallies, that's not going to matter as much when we're trying to sell the club to players. We beat and were competitive and took points off all these teams that were in and around the top 6 at the point that we played them. That's the biggest story for me. Yeah, we know we need to improve against the teams that are lower down, but you're not going to be a very successful football team if you can't beat the teams that are the top teams in the league, and we can do that. So that's a nice thing to prove, isn't it? I think so. That's why I care about these last few games, and particularly these next 2, is because they're just big tests. And if we can come out of those tests with some positivity, it just bodes so well for next season. I am so excited for next season, and this season hasn't even finished yet.
No, 100%. It's going to be a really good last 2 games, hopefully, and it's going to be a really good summer as well. Kind of hopefully on the back of, even if we don't do too well in those last 2 games, because we've now seen what we can do with this squad. So next season, we're not going into the summer needing a rebuild. We're going into the summer maybe just needing to strengthen 1 or 2 little areas, making a couple of different signings, replacing players if they do go. But if they go, they're going to be going on big money. So, again, I'm with you. I'm really looking forward to next year. But for those of you who do go on Saturday, enjoy that one. I'm sure you'll be looking forward to that. Once again, as we did mention at the start of the podcast, good luck to Gary in the London Marathon on Sunday. And because of that, we will next see you and speak to you on Monday, when I believe it is me and Ben who are going to be dissecting. Oh, no, it's you and Ben.
No,
is it me and Ben? It's me and Ben.
Yeah, it's you and Ben. Definitely not me. I'm working.
Who are going to be dissecting the Stockport game. I'm all over the place now. But that is all for today. So until next time, there is only one more thing left to say. Up the imps.
Up the imps.